All right, so today we're going to be going over the client retention campaign strategies. So in your teammate files folder, if you head to your mentorship session resources and open up the client retention campaigns, that folder is going to give you everything that you need to build your client retention campaign. The first document that you want to start with is the schedule. Now this document here lays out the schedule on how you should be following up with your buyer and seller clients from the day of closing all the way until the next time you use them again for a transaction. So there's several things that we want to do along the way. And the reason that we set up this campaign in the first place is because it is significantly easier to retain an existing client than it is to acquire a new client. From a cost perspective, from a time perspective, and from an effectiveness perspective, it is much easier to reuse a client again or to get a referral from your existing clients. If you try to acquire new clients, that's going to take some time, it's going to take some money, it's going to take some effort. So focusing on retaining your existing client base is one of the more useful and effective ways that you can grow your book of business. But to do that, first of all, you have to do an effective job while you're their agent. If you didn't do a very good job for them as their agent, they're probably not going to use you anyways, no matter how effective your retention campaign is. That being said, we're assuming that you did do a good job and everything went smoothly with the closing and you had a good relationship with your clients. So moving forward, what to do for setting up your schedule starts from the day of closing all the way until the time they're going to use you again. One of the best things that you can do at the closing table is to provide a token of appreciation, a gift. And that's exactly what this website is for. So if you head over to token.vip, that's going to give you a great list of professional items that you can buy as a closing gift to your buyer and seller clients. What I would do is set up a reminder in your calendar for approximately 1 to 2 weeks before closing. So that way you can purchase the gift and have it available at closing. Day one, as far as move-in day, it's different from closing day. For some people, they do move in on closing day. Other people might move in a day later, a week later, a month, or even a couple months later. But what I like to do whenever they actually move in is go to the home with pizza and beer in hand, paper towel and paper plates, because everybody on moving day, whether they're moving themselves or whether they're hiring a movers, it's always a stressful time. No one wants to cook. They're doing a lot of work. And so having pizza and beer delivered adds a nice little touch to that. Again, that's optional. That's something that I do and I recommend, and you can do something different if you choose for actual move-in day. Then what we'll do is we'll start our mailing campaigns. So these campaigns are a combination of mailed letters through the post office, as well as an email follow-up with some of these letters as well. So 1 week, so letter A, 1 week after closing, we have a letter that goes to our buyer clients, and we have a letter that goes to our seller clients. Now what's important here is if you have a listing, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be sending both of these letters. As a listing, you can send these letters to your seller client, the client that actually sold the home, and then you can also sell the buyer letter to the new buyer of the home. Whether or not you were the agent that worked with that particular buyer, once that buyer officially closes on a home, you are allowed to market your services to that particular buyer. And chances are you've had some interaction with the other side of the table with that client. And so they might be receptive to some of your marketing that you have. But again, that's if you have a listing client. You can advertise to both your seller, wherever they're off to next, and the buyer who just purchased your listing. Obviously, if you just worked with the buyer for that particular property, you probably only have the contact information for your buyer in that new property, so you'll just be sending the buyer letter. But what you want to do is in your calendar, when you're setting up those notifications of the day of closing, and inspection periods and financing periods and things like that, you'll also want to be setting up your follow-up campaigns in your calendar as well. And that's something that we on the brokerage side will be doing, and some of you have already received those notifications for annual reviews and 90-day letters and things like that to send out to your particular clients. So 1 week after closing, you're going to be sending out a letter. And if you click on the link for the buyer and seller, it will open up in a new tab for you, a draft copy of that particular letter. And all you have to do is go up to File, make a copy. Click on make a copy, and then select the folder in which you want that letter to go. So bring it back over to your drive, put it in your drive, hit select, and now it will copy that letter. And now you have a copy of this particular letter in your own folder that you can edit any way you want. If you want to change the text up a little bit, you can do that. Obviously, you need to enter today's date, the client's name and address here, along with your name, and then when you print it out, your particular signature. And then you can save it and it becomes part of your drive. But make sure you're not editing the template letters in the folder, because that's for everybody to use and to edit. Make sure you're making your own copy. So that is for letter A, 1 week after closing. Then we have 30 days after closing, which we will send to the buyers a list of contractors and vendors and suppliers that can help out with remodeling their home. And to sellers, we can send them a list of financial vendors, things like CPAs, tax accountants, lawyers, someone that would be beneficial for helping a seller after they sell their home. So not only are we opening up that particular letter, again, we're making a copy. So you go to File, make a copy, put it in your particular drive. That way you can edit the letter. But with these, we're also sending out our list of recommended contractors, vendors, and suppliers. So that way, if something ever happens with someone's home, let's say they need someone to install a new cabinet. They have that particular recommendation. Or let's say they want to install new tile flooring and they have that recommendation. We have a list of our contractors and vendors that we've been using over time that are pretty good at what they do. And we can present this list to the buyer when they need it. Same thing with a particular seller. We're sending them our list of financial vendors that could possibly help them after selling a home. So accountants, CPAs, attorneys, financial advisors, these are all the people that could help out a seller once they sell their particular property. Then 30 days after move-in, again, a little bit different from closing, but pretty similar. We want to send a letter to specifically the buyers checking in on how the move-in process went. You know, was there any dings or dents that came up with the move? Did you have to file any insurance claim, home warranty claims? Did you update your official records, things like that? That's what that letter is going to be sent out to them as well. I should mention that going back to the list of vendors that we're sending to the buyers and sellers, what's also recommended in the text of the letter, in the copy of the letter, is a emailed version of these spreadsheets with all the contact information. Same thing too when we're requesting our reviews on social media, Zillow and Realtor.com, you want to follow that up with an email to those clients, so that way they have a direct link in their email, and you're sending that email a few days or a week or two after you're sending that letter, so that way they can sync up pretty well as far as timing. But definitely check the content of each letter so you know when you have to follow up with both the letter and the email. 60 days after move-in for the buyers, we're sending a monthly maintenance checkup, so that way they know, hey, these are the things that I need to do on my home once I move in on a monthly basis. Letter E, which is our 90 days after closing, we're sending a letter to the buyer and a letter to the seller for homestead exemption. So if a buyer purchased a property, whether or not they plan on using it as a homesteaded property or not, there's language in the letter that explains exactly what they should and shouldn't do. And same thing with the seller. Now that they're selling their property, whether they plan on buying another homesteaded property or not, here are the instructions that they need to follow to do that. Letter F, 6 months after closing. This is a big one. This is the one we're going to be specifically asking for referrals from both the buyers and sellers. The letter is the exact same for both buyers and sellers. So you want to open that, make a copy, and mail that to your buyer and seller clients, specifically asking for referrals. Then every year on their anniversary from buying or selling the property, we want to follow up with our buyers who are now currently homeowners who might turn into sellers. We're going to be sending them every single year an updated suggested listing price report and a net sheet. So that way that gives them an understanding of, okay, if I were to sell my home today, here's how much it would possibly go for and here's how much money I would net. Now, it might only be a year since they bought the property and they might have no interest in selling, but it is good for them to know how much equity that they have in their home. And now if someone's owned their home for 5, 6, 10, 20 years, and you're sending them this letter, it very much might trigger them to give you a call and say, oh yeah, I need to talk to my agent about selling my property. And sellers, since assuming that they are not new homeowners, we're again just asking for referrals from them. Now, these are very specific dates throughout the year as far as they're triggered by when a closing was or when a move-in was. Throughout the year, you want to also make sure that you have reminders on your calendar to send out birthdays, wedding anniversaries, Valentine's Day, 4th of July, and Thanksgiving. Those are spaced evenly throughout the year as far as Valentine's Day, 4th of July, and Thanksgiving. That way you can send a greeting card to them, and you click on these particular links and they open up some sample birthday cards, 4th of July cards, Thanksgiving cards that you could send to your particular client. So when we talk about setting up the calendar notifications, some of you receive some of these calendar notifications. So essentially what it is, in the client retention campaign calendar, we have the CRC, client retention campaign, the letter E. So again, this is corresponding to, in the schedule, here's letter E. Okay, that's what I'm sending to. I'm sending it to this particular property. And here's a link to the buyer letter, and here's a link to the seller letter. And that way you have it in your calendar that, okay, I'm going to get an email notification at this particular time that I need to mail this particular letter to this particular client. And again, when we talk about automation, when we talk about setting up your campaigns and your systems, again, this makes it pretty simple and pretty automated, that all you have to do is print a letter, sign your name, and put it in the mailbox. And so with that, that's how we work our client retention campaigns.